بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء سيد المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد على آله الطيبين الطاهرين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على
اللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم إلى قيامة يوم الدين. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله. يا غريب كربلاء رزقنا الله في الدنيا زيارتكم وشفاعتكم في الدنيا وفي القبر وفي الآخرة. أما بعد، يقول الله في محكم كتابه وقرآنه المجيد وقوله الحق: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وقال الذين لا يعلمون لولا يكلمنا الله أو تأتينا آية كذلك قال الذين من قبلهم مثل قولهم تشابهت قلوبهم قد بينا الآيات لقوم يوقنون. إنا أرسلناك بالحق بشيرا ونذيرا ولا تسأل عن أصحاب الجحيم. ولن ترضى عنك اليهود ولا النصارى حتى تتبع ملتهم. قل إن هدى الله هو الهدى ولئن اتبعت أهواءهم بعد الذي جاءك من العلم ما لك من الله من ولي ولا نصير. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وعلى Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Our discussions have led us into our 6th night now. We have finished with Tawheed, Adala, and now tonight, inshallah, we will start with Nubuwwah, the third essential pillar of the Usul ad-Din. Without the belief in prophethood, one cannot truly be considered a Muslim. This is something that is muttafaqun alayh. This is something that is agreed upon by the consensus of all schools of thought, that you have to believe in prophethood. Okay? Otherwise, how do we believe in Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So, first, I want to start by acknowledging that, especially in recent times, this is not a new phenomenon, but it is something that has recently grown into its own identity. And that is this sort of movement of being spiritual, but not religious. You find a lot of people who say that I don't really need religion. In order to be spiritual, I can connect with Allah, with God, on my own terms, and I don't need organized religion. And whatever else other reasons they may have for having these feelings, for having these stances, we find that there seems to be an overarching agreement that organized religion is too ritualized. There's too many rules, there's too many regulations, And we find that this is even something that atheists, agnostics, when you ask them sometimes, if you're able to read in between the lines, why do you not want to follow a religion? You'll find that the answer is because they don't want to have to subject themselves to all these rules and regulations. They want to be free. They want, at the end of the day, to be in control of their own lives. They want to live how they want to live. They don't want to have it dictated, for example, by a scripture. They don't want to have it be dictated by norms and cultures as they see it from thousands of years ago. They would rather go with the times. They would rather live in the modern day, appreciate and live with all of the niceties, we could say, of the modern age, and they don't want to be held back by something called religion. Why then do we put an extra constraint on ourselves called following prophets and imams? What exactly does a prophet do for us? And so the first half of our discussion, I will be analyzing what exactly does a prophet do for us? And in the second half, inshallah, we'll be looking into the question of why doesn't Allah just talk to me directly? I mean, surely in the previous couple of nights, we've looked at alternative methods or alternative ideas to what we believe. Inshallah, I've done a satisfactory job of convincing everyone why we believe what we believe so far. But there are alternatives that people have suggested to this system of a divine God sending us representatives called prophets and messengers, and then, of course, in our school of thought after the prophets, imams. So that'll come, inshallah, in the second half. But first and foremost, what exactly does a prophet even do for us? There are, three major answers for that. Yes. And in order to understand even those, we have to understand why exactly do we need this spiritual side and this guide first and foremost. And to answer that, we have to understand that the human being has three primary categories of needs. We can categorize those into the physical, into the emotional, and into the spiritual. The physical needs, I'm sure everybody can say, okay, look, we all need at some point or another, no matter if we're doing this fast or this diet or whatever, we need food, we need drink. From the emotional side, we need, for example, friends, we need companions, we need spouses. We need, at the end of the day, those needs that a gregarious creature needs. Gregarious just means that we need to exist within a ecosystem, others. And then we have the spiritual ones, which we would call religion. If anybody says, I don't need, this concept of istighna, right? This comes, for example, in Surah Abasa. Does he see himself as someone who is not in need? What is this concept of istighna? Briefly, in these three categories that I just laid out, if anybody says, I don't need, it's going to start affecting their other spheres of life. If, for example, I miss breakfast and lunch and I'm still waiting for dinner, am I going to be able to concentrate as well in my namaz as I would have been able to if I were fed properly? Probably not. Am I going to be able to, for example, concentrate in my namaz if I'm going through an emotional tragedy? Say, for example, we brought the example yesterday of losing a loved one. Am I going to be able to concentrate on Allah Ta'ala as He deserves in my namaz? Probably not. And there are problems that arise, brothers and sisters, when we misdiagnose which category needs healing. Sometimes we have a physical problem, right? You start looking through the dua books, which dua should I read? first you need to go to a nutritionist, fix your diet. Probably even in the more near future, you need to go to a doctor, right, because you have some kind of an infection. And then, of course, bring in the du'as, and inshallah, that'll help. But if you just stay at home and you're going to rely only on du'as, and you're not going to rely on preventative or even, as the medical experts call it, allopathic medicine, you're not going to use modern science's drugs and medicines, then you're not going to really get far. In fact, you'll probably end up harming yourself. Sometimes, for example, and this is something that I've mentioned, maybe not on this minbar, but on previous manabir, that it is not necessarily the role of the Mawlana or even the resident alim for some cases of mental health. Yes, there are some things that religion can say. There are hard times that our prophets and imams have gone through. Right? Prophet Ayyub alayhi salatu wasalam has such a tragic story of difficulty and hardship, as well as many of our imams. And so there are times where we can look to them for guidance. But is that really a substitute for seeking out a therapist? Is that really a substitute for going to someone who is trained in these professions? Which, by the way, just because you might see someone with a turban or wearing these kinds of clothes, that's not an invitation for you to go and open up a therapy session. It might be, of course, a little bit cheaper, but those professionals are paid those big bucks because they've gone to school for this. Preliminary help, yes, of course, we are there to help. We have the, examples that can help you, but maybe not the right ones that may be necessary for you. I've heard of many, we can deem them as horror stories, where people who are from, let's say, my profession, who are older, may give the wrong example to people who are in dire need. And that was not what the person who was affected by the illness needed to hear. And it doesn't necessarily just need to be mental health. It could be an emotional health illness. All that I'm saying is seek out a second opinion. And seek out, in this second opinion category, someone who's a professional. Seek out someone who you can actually talk to, someone who understands you. And there are many who incorporate faith-based help with their therapy. There are many, even from our community, go into these practices primarily because they see the need. So this is something that I want to go and make sure that everybody knows that help is available. And before we see, as other communities that shall not be named have made mention to me before, youth are in dire trouble. And as soon as their parents, their elders start to go and try to force them towards religion, they start to go and increase the amount of stress that they go through. And unfortunately, sometimes those youth, even younger than I am, end up committing suicide. And obviously with such a permanent solution to a temporary problem, there's no further help that anybody, even professionals, can bring. So this is not something that our religion asks us to do, to go and completely discard or to neglect one of these needs of the human being. No, Islam is a practical religion. Islam says, go to those who are professionals. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, alayhi salatu wassalam, what does he do when he is looking for a new wife? After, of course, Fatima Zahra, salamullah alayha, has tragically been martyred. And he wants to have a young supporter for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. When he wants that mother for Abu Fadl Abbas, who does he go to? Even though he's the Imam, he has the ilm al-ghayb. Who does he go to for the genealogies? He goes to his brother, Aqil. He says, Aqil, I need a woman who comes from a strong tribe, and that tribe needs to have shuja'. So it's not a problem if we go to professionals. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So then what exactly does a prophet do for us? See, in Nahj al-Balagha, of course, we see Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam describing Rasulullah as that prophet. Who exactly, what medicine, apply, where to apply it, when to apply it, etc. Rasulullah and the Imams, of course, they are at the pinnacle of each and every single field of science. If you want to go to them as your therapist and whatever, if they are here, that is a different level. Now, I'm not discounting talking to the Imam. But with Rasulullah, what exactly does he offer? What did the other prophets of God offer to their people? Number one, these prophets expound for us the realities of the ghaib. And at some point underneath the ghaib, they tell us that system that is necessary for us in order to reach the akhirah. See, many people say in this mindset of istighna, right, which is, I don't really need the spiritual. We already gave examples of, if one of those two is missing, it could affect the spiritual. But I didn't get to go over is if we're missing the spiritual, it can also affect the other two. What does the Prophet give us? He first and foremost gives us that behind the scenes, behind the curtain look of what is happening in the ghaib and how exactly I can attain najat and salvation in my akhirah. See, what the atheist, what the secularist would like to say is, I can, pretty much live a successful life on my own. Look, I have a family, I have a job, I have, success in my social circles. What do I really need religion for? I'm rich, successful, famous even, right? There's many who are in the entertainment industry who do not follow a religion in the traditional sense. If they were to come and ask you, look, what exactly do I need religion for? Tell them, look, a prophet first and foremost, he tells us what's happening behind the scenes for my salvation. Eventually in these nights we'll come to the belief in Qiyamah, that hereafter. Why do we believe in it? And why is it appropriate and responsible to believe in this holistic system? But until then, before even we get over there, it is necessary for us to believe in a prophet to guide us correctly there. Otherwise, yes, we can learn how to build houses. I can learn how to go and make friends. Okay? I can learn how to go and do all of these different things to some level of success without a prophet. No one's disagreeing with you over there. Point, however, is I am convinced that there is a holistic system at play over here, as we mentioned yesterday and we'll get to in the nights of Ma'ad. How am I supposed to go and attain my salvation if I don't have anybody guiding me? Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salatu wassalam says that when you travel in the earth, you hire a guide, hire a travel guide. Whereas the roads of the samawat are even more complex than the roads of the ard. And we are acquainted with all of those paths. What is he trying to say? He's saying that not just about the pathways that airplanes take, right? We were having a discussion. Why does an airplane coming from Detroit to Seattle take longer than the one from Seattle to Detroit? Right? And aside from the journey home is always shorter. Those pathways in the samawat that Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam is talking about, those are the spiritual pathways. There are so many pathways, of course. We're not saying that there aren't pathways to Allah. Best way to get there, without having your time wasted, that's what you need a guide for. If you're going to hire someone over here to go and give you a tour of the city, why would you not do the same when it comes to your religion? So that's our first response to those types of people who are spiritual yet not religious. Look, we are taking a spiritual guide over here. Someone who is trained and who knows the pathways better than us. Someone who has been taught these pathways by Rabbul Alameen and has been certified to teach them to me at my level. Number two, in this question of what exactly does a prophet even offer me, this prophet offers me a complete justice system. Remember, we said in night one that religion is nothing if not a system of rights and, of course, responsibilities. Without this system of rights, I'm not going to be able to live a perfect lifestyle. So, with the presence of a prophet, with the presence of imams, I now gain this perfect justice system. See, with 124,000 prophets and even 11 imams, what was the generalized response of humankind towards each and every single one of them? Either they were rejected or they were killed. The very few minority of them were actually accepted by their people, and they were actually, followed during their time. And yet, even those that were followed during their time by a people, even they had difficulties. For example, the Prophet Musa, how many troubles did Bani Israel give him? Our Prophet, Rasulullah, how many troubles did his time's Muslims give him? This is not just something that, is willy-nilly. There's a reason why the 12th and final Imam has been hidden. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is basically getting the message from humankind. After all of this rejection, after all of this killing, we can do it ourselves. We don't want guidance from you. So he goes and takes the 12th and final Imam and keeps him in safeguarding for when you are all ready, and I am ready. And he says, you want to go and try to have a system on your own? Bismillah. It's been over 1,000 years, brothers and sisters. Have we been able to figure it out on our own? Not really. Even the most advanced countries, with the historians and the politicians, will call the G7 countries. We have problems or not? Let's look at our own country. We have problems? Of course we have problems. We have problems of mass shootings. We have problems, at least to some level, of income inequality. We have problems within the economy. We have problems within, our justice system, our prison system. There's so many problems. Where do we start? Within our education system, we have problems. So don't let anybody tell you that, science will go and tell us the way now. Religion has had its time and it's been outdated. Now let's let science have a chance. Science, those atheistic regimes in the 20th century that came and tried to go and impose their rule, what was the end result of all of it? What was the result of Stalin's rule? What was the result of Mao Zedong? Except for mass genocide and destruction. Right? We're looking at the moral, not only just the technological achievements. So we find that humans are not able to determine the system by themselves. And we have riwayat as well to this effect that say that before the advent of the Qa'im of Al-Muhammad, humankind will try their best and go through each and every single type of system that they possibly can. But they will not be able to run it perfectly. You see, on paper, everything seems like it works. It's in practice that we need a tried and true system. This is why, brothers and sisters, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib is the biggest miracle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why? Because for 4 years and 9 months, he showed that Rasulullah's system actually works. In 4 years and 9 months, that government of Ali actually eradicated poverty within all of Iraq. Within that 4 years and 9 months, even with 3 civil wars, every Friday you have a hadith that Imam Ali alayhi salam had a surplus in Baytul Mal, and he would go and give freely to the Muslim people. Afterwards, he would have his servant come and sweep Baytul Mal, and Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib would stand in Baytul Mal and offer 2 rakats namaz of shukr. That thank you, Ya Allah, for allowing me the chance to establish a just government. What does Imam Ali say? He says, I am nothing but a servant amongst the servants of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is the second thing that prophets give us. They give us a just system that no one else could have possibly given us. And the proof in the pudding is, it's been 1,000 years. That Imam is still alive. What have we been able to achieve by ourselves? Nothing. The third thing, this is something that The Quran doesn't tell us. You see, the first two, at least we have Quranic ayat that show us this. The first one, exposing the reality of the ghaib, we find in Surah An-Nisa, ayah number 64. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن رَسُولٍ إِلَّا لِيُطَاعَ بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. That we never sent a prophet except that they should be obeyed by the will of Allah. What else is the exposition of the ghaib supposed to give us? The exposition of the hereafter supposed to give us. Oh, wow, thank you so much for telling us that I need to go and pray 5 times a day. No, I also need to follow the Prophet in how he prayed. I also need to follow the Imams when they expose even further how did Rasulullah. The second one that we just got through, which is that just system, we find the Quran also mentioning that in Surah Al-Hadid, ayah number 25, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رُسُلُنَا بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ وَأَنزَلْنَا مَعَهُمْ الْكِتَابَ وَالْمِيزَانَ يَقُومَ النَّاسَ بِالْقِسْطِ. That we definitely sent those messengers with clear proofs, and we sent with them the book and the scales, the criterion, so that you can tell the difference between right and wrong. Why? لِيَقُومَ النَّاسَ بِالْقِسْطِ. This is a Quranic secret that shows that you won't be able to do it unless you follow the prophetic path. If you decide to leave that path, you will never be able to achieve that utopia on earth. Everybody thinks that they can go and do utopia on earth. There have been big philosophers and they've tried their ideas for hundreds of years. Some of them have even gone into government. And yet, when those ideas were implemented, as we said, mass genocide was what resulted. Number 3, this is not something, like I said, that comes from the Quran. This is something that comes from one of our great scholars. And this is something that the teachers in Hausa, our scholars, teach us, and they mention to us from Sheikh Al-Tusi. Sheikh Al-Tusi was one of those early great scholars. He says that there is a rule called Qa'idat al-Lutf. What does this say? It says that, look, Allah Ta'ala is kind and merciful. He wants us to be guided. He wants us to come to paradise. Right? Remember, in one of the previous nights, we quoted from Surah Al-Hud, وَلِذَلِكَ خَلَقَهُمْ. I did why? Because I want to go and give that special mercy towards the mu'mineen. That's why I created them. Without that, that equation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is incomplete. And so because of Qa'idatul Lut, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends us messengers so that we can have help along the way in knowing that we are on Siratul Mustaqim. Without those prophets, it becomes very hard. See, basically what this argument is trying to say is that without those prophets to guide us, and now we'll transition into why can't Allah just communicate with us directly? We'll use this as the segue. It seems as if without those prophets, it would be very hard for me to interpret, even if Allah were to talk to me directly. So now let's move into that question and analyze it a little bit deeper, right? Because when it's addressed in the Quran, in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number 218, which I started off my presentation with, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وقال الذين لا يعلمون لولا يكلمنا الله أو تأتينا آية. See, it's very important that we understand what the baggage, what the emotional baggage, what the mental state of the people who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is responding to is prior to reading the response. This is why tafsir and tadabbur is so important in Quranic studies. Sometimes we just read the Quran, sometimes through a bad translation, we read an ayah like this and we're like, that doesn't make any sense to me. What kind of an answer is this? I mean, you read the translation that's up on the screen next to me, and what does it say? They ask, why doesn't Allah just talk to me directly? And what is Allah's answer? This is just what other people before them, from long before them, said, and their hearts are so similar. And to you, who actually might have this question, it doesn't seem like a satisfactory reply. So let's go through the actual reply to this question, and then we'll come back to this. Okay? So what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why doesn't He just communicate to us? Throughout these last few nights, we've gone through a couple of different alternatives to the standard belief that we have. Now let's look at the alternatives to this of giving us prophets. Why doesn't he just go and send an angel to me? Look, he could go and send an angel to 124,000 prophets, right? Why not just send it to, I mean, today we have 8 billion people. Let's go and say that throughout all of human history, there have been, I don't know, let's go for a high number, 100 billion. Why not just go and, I mean, send 100 billion angels. Each one has their own angel. Or he could just talk directly to me, right? Musa alayhi salam was talked directly by Allah. Or send a divine sign that everybody can easily access, and that will clearly show this is the correct path. Or, for example, just send down the completed book, the Quran, right? This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deems as the complete and final book that we will need. Send that down through an angel, or like, attach a rope and just show it coming down from the sky, make it glow a little bit. Maybe it has wings. Or maybe invent drones like 1400 years early, because I mean, we've been promised by Amazon that we'll have drone deliveries any day, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have just invented drones. Why not just do that? I mean, these are logical questions. See, what we have from our scholars is the following. Number one, miracles were given to previous peoples. Let's look at, for example, the people of Salih. They came and said, you know what? Why don't you go and show us a female camel that has a baby inside of it already, coming from inside this mountain? The mountain splits open and out comes this 9-10 month pregnant camel. Why don't you do that first? Then we'll believe. Now, I'm sure probably even our Sunday school kids could tell us that that's exactly what Prophet Salih brought. That's exactly what he brought. Did that help? No. Arguably, it made the people of his time even more stubborn. Let's look at another prophet, Prophet Musa alayhi salam. Quran says that we sent 9 signs to Fir'aun and his elites. Did that help the people of Fir'aun, those people in Egypt? Did it help them? No, actually, it seems that those elites in Fir'aun's cabal used to come secretly to Musa. In the Quran, it says this, that look, make dua to your Lord. If he goes and relieves us of this sickness, of these plagues, we will send with you Bani Israel. What does Allah do? He goes and alleviates that plague from them. What do? They're like, you know what? No, we're not convinced. This was just a trick. They always have some kind of a retort. They always have some kind of a comeback. This is why, brothers and sisters, in Prophet Isa alayhi salam, towards the end of Surah Al-Ma'idah, that Ma'idah, why is it called the Ma'idah? You know that famous painting of the Last Supper? That's what that Ma'idah is. Okay? That story of the Ma'idah, where the Hawariyun, the believers, the disciples of Nabi Isa alayhi salam were asking, and I'll explain why they're asking for this, but they're asking, can your Lord please send down a table of food down for us so that we can physically eat from it? Why are they asking for this? And at the end of Prophet Isa's mission, the reason why is because they see the Romans and the Sanhedrin of the Jews coming and closing in on Prophet Isa. And they know that very soon he's going to be captured. And they know after that, they're going to be captured by the Romans, and it's going to be hard persecution. They're going to be, put in colosseums and made to fight against lions, and they're going to be devoured. It's going to be a very, very difficult trial for them. So they need to know for sure that this is really a heavenly, divinely inspired religion. What's the answer of Nabi Isa alayhi salam? He says, Ittaqillah. Be cautious, be fearful of Allah. Why? Because he's the final messenger that's sent to Bani Israel. Bani Israel has been sent prophets one after another since the time of Musa. They know. Can we have those doors closed, please? Those main doors, if those could be closed, it's just a little bit distracting. Prophet Isa alayhi salam is the final messenger in this long legacy of prophets. And he says, ittaqillah. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself says, he says, okay, I will send this ma'idah. But after this, if anybody disbelieves, I personally will torture them with such a torture that no one in humankind has ever seen such a torture before. Of course, this is talking about the akhirah. Why? Because you are convinced. And when I send down the hujjah, that miracle, now there is no more excuses left to believe. So he says, if I send this down, and guess what? The adab is going to be also very, very tough. I prefer for you to accept it with your intellect and accept miracles that are audible, not visual. This is why Rasulullah Muhammad ﷺ is given an audible miracle and not really visual. We're not saying that he doesn't have miracles, any in his life, but to prove his prophethood, maybe not. The biggest miracle of Rasulullah is the Quran. This audible miracle. It's this book that transformed the world and so many civilizations and cultures. This is the biggest miracle. So, first and foremost, the answer to that question, why doesn't Allah just communicate with me directly? Well, how did it work out with those previous people? It didn't work out so well. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows you better than you know yourself. Accept what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said is the best possible scenario for you. And don't try to reinvent the wheel for Allah. You're going to come and now teach Allah your religion? The second answer is, how exactly is a test intellectual? If the answers are all just out there for you. You see, we asked them, okay, look, you want a divine sign? But what do you want Allah to do? You want him to go and write the name of the Banjatan or the Kisa on a mountain or something? Okay, let's say if he goes and writes it on a mountain in Seattle, then the rest of the world, how are they going to? But if it's on the moon, okay, well, nobody's been to the moon yet. But then everybody has to go and learn Arabic. And even if they all recognize, okay, Muhammad, Ali, Fatima, Hassan, Hussein, these are the five that we have to follow. Maybe from there, if that's all that Allah gives, each one will have their own mirch and masala that they go and start adding into their religion. They say, okay, well, Muhammad, Ali, Fatima, Hassan, Hussein, this is what they want us to do. Maybe they're gods. Maybe they're just like, tricksters who put their name on the moon. There's no telling with humankind what exactly conclusions will come. So this is not the optimal way either. In this second answer, how is it an intellectual test designed to test us? Remember that example that we gave of the professor who puts 3 wrong answers and 1 right answer? Imagine now, he goes and puts all of these tests. لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. And now in the middle of the test, he goes and starts shouting out the correct answers. By the way, question number 1, it's B. Question number 2, D. Question 3, 4, and 5, C. Question 6, A. So what's the point of this test? Why did I go and pay my tuition over here? And how was my struggle where I studied for weeks for this exam? Let's say it's the, MCAT, and I studied for months for this exam. How was my studying and my hard work being rewarded compared to the one who just decided to go and sign up at the last minute, and he didn't know that the test was even today, and he just came in at the last minute, but he happened to hear that the professor is giving out the answers. You want this person to go and do surgery on you? Or you want me, the person who goes through all of the hard work, to do surgery on you? It's innate. Even from what we know in our day-to-day lives, brothers and sisters, in this system, we know that we wouldn't accept these kinds of results because it's been tampered with. So then why would we go and accept this kind of a test when it comes to the biggest test of all, which is this life, and the rewards and the stakes are so high where it's Jannah or Jahannam? Why would we accept that? So this is the second answer that the scholars give us. The third answer is, look, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose, like we said in those hypotheticals, look, he sent angels to everybody else. Why couldn't he send angels to me? He sent it to the prophets, right? He sent it to the Rasul. Why can't he send it to me? The answer to this is that, look, Quran comes in first and foremost, says, if we were to send an angel, فَلَلَبَسْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ مَا يَلْبِسُونَ. There's two different meanings to this. Would have made him look exactly how he was. He would have been wearing human clothes. But the second, more intellectual meaning of this, the philosophical meaning that we can derive from this, is what? They're already confused as it is. Now you're going to tell them that, no, this one, he looks human, but he's a different creation, but he's sent to guide you. He can't sin. It's just going to compound the level of confusion. You really want to make the test even more confusing? The test is already hard enough as it is. You're asking me to go and add the guide himself is going to be hard? People are going to debate, wait, how can we even properly follow this guide? And truly, an angel is not allowed to disobey Allah. We have emotions, desires, which an angel doesn't have. How are we supposed to go and take this angel seriously if their test is not even the same as our test? But combining arguments 2 and 3, now how is it a hard test? How is it a valid test? With this one of the angel, imagine this. Instead of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and instead of the prophets that were sent, you have an angel who comes and he leads humanity. Ask yourself, how many human beings would really reject? Okay, yeah, fine, it's an angel. We'll follow an angel. How hard is that test? Allah just sent an angel. Says, follow this angel. Yeah, sure. I mean, he floats. Yeah, I mean, if we're going by just like, what art and Hollywood depicts, he has a halo over his head. He has wings. He looks kind of cool. We'll follow him. It becomes increasingly harder when he's your fellow human, especially for 40 years. If this man is your next door neighbor, sure, he is Sadiq and Ameen. He tells the truth. You've never seen a more akhlaqi person than Rasulullah. One day, he starts to make the claim that an angel came to you, and everything that I say, you have to follow. Do you accept me as your messenger? This is going to be hard. This is why it's so hard for the people that the messenger lives among. For them, it's the hardest test. Like, we saw you grow up. We saw you when you were a kid. I was your friend. Ask yourselves, if your next door neighbor just all of a sudden comes to you, and this time they're not asking for salt or sugar, they're saying, you need to go and obey me, and if you don't, there's an eternal punishment. What would you say? Tomorrow, inshallah, we'll look closer at what exactly, how can we tell who is a true prophet? Right, so that we can see, again, in this series, am I following the right religion? Or is there another prophet? Because there's other religions that also have prophets. Some of them we don't accept. So, number 3, we start off with the angels. But number 3, point 1, this is what I was alluding to earlier in my presentation. If Allah just speaks to me directly, it seems that it would not be enough. It would still be a little bit vague. Meaning, God inspires me, forgive. He sees something has happened in my life and he goes and tells me, forgive. Okay, the directions are semi-clear. I've forgiven him in my heart, but I still keep on reminding the person. Is this true forgiveness? But if you have your fellow man, if you have a role model, and he teaches you what is the meaning of forgiveness, that's something different. Want to see real forgiveness? Come and look at Imam Hussein alayhi salam and how he forgives Hur bin Yazid. Hur comes to him and he says, Mawla, I was the one that blocked the water from you and your kids. But is there tawbah for me? Is there a chance for me? He says, in tubta tab Allah. He says, if you've asked for forgiveness, Allah has forgiven you. You want patience? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes and inspires in your heart, be patient. Okay, how am I supposed to be patient? Yeah, but once you see Yaqub alayhi salam be patient with his own sons and how they're trying to gaslight him. No. So he was eaten by the wolf. He says, yeah, the wolf, right? Where's the tear marks on his shirt? All I see is blood. Where's the tear marks on his shirt? Oh, you never were going to believe us in the first place anyway. In kunna, even if we were truthful in Surah Yusuf, you still wouldn't have, believed us. This is the type of toxic relationship that they had with their father. Yaqub alayhi salam is still, even in the face of that, patient. This is why we have Surah Yusuf, so that we can go and implement it into our family lives. This is how we learn patience. This is the best way for us to learn patience with other human beings who have heightened emotions, more emotions than we can even comprehend, yet they show us the way. They light the candle for us. They show us, if I could do it, you can do it. Reply number 4, and I don't want to take too much time because we're running out of time, is the ulama say, look, in order for you to speak to Allah, who are you? You don't have the capacity to really understand that divine message of Allah. You don't have what it takes to survive if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were to talk to you. Right? When Musa alayhi salam says, Ya Allah, could I have a little bit of a glimpse? He says, I'll give a little bit of that tajalli to that mountain nearby. What happens to that mountain? You guys know. It happens in Judaism and in Islam. The mountain crumbles. Put in simple terms for our younger brothers and sisters, if I ask you for your phone, and I say, can I just take this phone to that, electrical grid outside? That huge tower that brings the electricity into our houses? Can I just plug it into over there? Kid will say no. I say, why? He says, well, look, you have to go and convert it into something like, and even the power outlets, it needs to have 120 volts. If it's too much, it'll fry my phone. Kids know this. And yet adults ask these kinds of questions. Look, brothers and sisters, if there's a system for something as simple as electricity, there won't be a system for something as complicated as divine communication. We're not ready for that type of communication. That complex system, Rasulullah and the other prophets and the imams, they simplify it for us. This is why I said yesterday, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, says if you act on what you know, Allah will teach you what you don't. You just have to go by what you do know, and then Allah will teach you what you don't. Number 5, very quickly, to show the status of those representatives. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala communicated through them. For you to come back to Him, yes, sure, you can go and pray to Him, but Allah wants you to come back through them. He wants you to learn from them. He wants you to use them to come back to you. This is why we do tawassul on Rasulullah. This is why we believe in shafa'ah. And finally, number 6, to test the people with someone that they know clearly less influential, less powerful, less rich than them. Yet, they have to obey. See, brothers and sisters, as I mentioned, it's harder when it's a human. It's harder when you know that human. When you know that human, you say, I could have done this. This is exactly what the Quran says. Why didn't Allah go and choose some celebrity from the 2 major cities, Mecca or Taif? Why didn't He choose one of us? Why did He choose him? He's an orphan. He's not that rich. I mean, one of us could have done the religion better. We could have had more reach. It's not that the message does not make sense to them. They have jealousy in their hearts. And this is where we will end with that ayah of Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number 118 through 120. وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ لَوْلَا يُكَلِّمُنَا اللَّهُ أَوْ تَأْتِينَا آيَةٌ. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers the way that He does. كَذَلِكَ قَالَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ مِثْلَ قَوْلِهِمْ فَشَابَهَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ فَتَبَيَّنَ الْآيَاتِ لِقَوْمٍ يُوقِنُونَ. Those people, it's not that Rasulullah's message didn't make sense. These guys are wasting time. These guys are coming up with excuses. Yeah, fine, the message makes sense. It's not that I need somebody else to come and explain the religion to me. It makes sense to me. They're not going to admit that. Oh. They're going to say, you know what? Why doesn't Allah talk to me directly? Why does He have to go through you? He could have talked to me directly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, this type of maneuvers, these kinds of time-wasting tactics, Ya Rasulullah, don't think that there's some problem in the way that you're delivering the message. You're fine. Right? Because this is why the next ayah says, إِنَّا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ بِالْحَقِّ بَشِيرًا وَنَذِيرًا وَلَا تُسْأَلُ عَنْ أَصْحَابِ الْجَحِيمِ. These people, don't even ask about them. You have been sent with the right message. Ayah number 119. Then ayah number 120. وَلَنْ تَرْضَى عَنْكَ الْيَهُودُ وَلَا النَّصَارَى حَتَّى تَتَّبِعَ مِلَّتَهُمْ قُلْ إِنَّ هُدَى اللَّهِ هُوَ الْهُدَى وَلَئِنِ اتَّبَعْتَ أَهْوَاءَهُمْ بَعْدَ الَّذِي جَاءَكَ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ مَا لَكَ مِنَ اللَّهِ مِنْ وَلِيٍّ وَلَا نَصِيرٍ quickly, in ayah number 118, look at the grammar of those last two words. لِقَوْمٍ يُوقِنُونَ. قَوْمٍ is nakira. يُوقِنُون is fi'al mudari'. When you have these two combined together, يُوقِنُون becomes a sifa, meaning it's not supposed to be translated as a people who have certainty. No, 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 no. This is a people who are trying to achieve certainty. Meaning if your intention is sincere and you want conviction, what Rasulullah has given you is enough. People who are trying to look for certainty, this Quran is way more than enough. You'll find the tears flowing from their eyes. But for people who don't even want guidance, they'll come up to you with excuses like this of, why doesn't Allah talk to me? And quickly, brothers and sisters, in ayah number 120, why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring up Yahud and Nasara? Because the danger is, and it happens until this day, and we'll conclude with exactly what we started off with. Those people who are spiritual but not religious, yes, those are one side of the group. Those are what eventually is exactly what happened with the Nasara. The Nasara completely left the law. They didn't want to live by those hard rules and regulations, and they just said everything is love. As long as you have a good heart, you'll go to paradise. As long as you're a good, kind human being, right? And as long as you look, is there a Sharia left in modern day Christianity? On the opposite side, exactly how they were at the time of Nabi Isa, that Sanhedrin, all they were was law. And you have some schools of thought, all they do is bid'ah, haram, shirk, walala. All of it, this is the only words that they know. Every time the Shia come, bid'ah, shirk, walala, this is all that they know. Rasulullah is being told, look, even with you, forget about us, his followers, even with Rasulullah, those types of people, لَن تَرْضَى عَنْكَ الْيَهُودُ حَتَّى تَتَّبِعَ مِلَّتَهُمْ, until you follow their way. Not their two ways, their way. Why? Because Rasulullah says, this guidance is all one path, and hidayah is all one path. It doesn't matter, Yahud, Nasara, it doesn't matter. But by the end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't even call it millatahum, their religion, their stuff. What does he say? If you follow their whimsical desires, after clear guidance has come to you, you, Ya Rasulullah, you don't even have it. It's a threat to Rasulullah. What is their left? So, brothers and sisters, this kind of jealousy, we see this from the time of Iblis and we see this with Ibrahim and Namrud. We see this with Musa and Fir'aun. We see this with Isa and the Sanhedrin. We see this with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Quraysh. We see this with Abu Bakr and Imam Ali alayhi salam. We see this with even the representatives of Sahib al-Zaman. Hussein bin Rawh is not even the representative yet. And a man by the name of Ash-Shalmaghani comes. He says, look at my qualifications. I'm a leader. I'm a scholar. I'm this and that. And he says, surely Sahib al-Zaman will go and pick me to be his third nine. What happens? Sahib al-Zaman picks someone else. What does Shalmaghani do? He leaves the religion, starts going and claiming that he's the Imam, changes his religion. He completely goes into a path of dalala. Is this what you want to happen to yourself? No. And this is exactly what happened between Muawiyah and Imam al-Hassan, Muawiyah and Imam Hussein, and Yazid. All these people, brothers and sisters, they knew exactly what happened. There was no trouble in the message getting to them. These people, even young kids like Harun and Muhammad, the sons of Abdullah ibn Ja'far. One of them is the son of Bibi Zainab alayhi salam. These young kids, they're able to find the truth. When Bibi Zainab is leaving Medina, she asked Abdullah ibn Ja'far, do you remember the conditions of my marriage, that I would go each and every single day to my brother Imam Hussein's house, and that when he goes to Karbala, I will go with him? She says, that day has come. Do you allow me to leave? He says, yes, I allow you. And take our sons with you, and make sure that our sons are sacrificed. Don't let Ali al-Akbar be sacrificed before our sons. They should be sacrificed before. Imam Hussein alayhi salam does not give them the permission, and Ali al-Akbar goes first. So when Zainab sees that her sons are still alive on the 10th of Muḥarram, she asks them, oh, my sons, you are still alive? You are still here? You haven't gone out into the battlefield? They say, our mother, what can we do? Every single time that we ask our uncle, He keeps on denying us. He says that you remind me too much of my sisters. She says, bring Abbas, my brother. Abbas comes and says his salams from outside the tent. He says, my sister, what can I do for you? She says, ask Abu Abdullah by my right. Let my sons become qurban for you. Let them become sacrifices for you. Abbas alayhi salam comes and asks Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, I will come to the tent of Zainab. He says, my sister Zainab, I understand you're right. Please don't use such heavy language with me. I just was worried if my brother-in-law, Abdullah ibn Ja'far, would be happy. She says, he was the one who asked me to bring them. Please, we wanted them to be sacrificed before Ali al-Akbar. Now at least let them go, even though Ali al-Akbar has already gone. He says, then in that case, send them to my tent. Abbas and I will outfit them with the clothes of war. Now, one son is being prepared by Imam Hussein. I want you to imagine this. These young boys of 10 and 11 years old, they're being prepared for war, for death, by Imam Hussein and Abbas. One of them says to the other as they're being put onto horses, they're too young for their feet to reach the saddles. One says to the other, our plan will be to go straight into the heart of the army and kill Umar ibn Sa'd, because once the head of the army is gone, they will lose morale. But once Umar ibn Sa'd sees them getting closer and closer and closer, he says, gather as much of the army as possible to go and kill these two young boys. They're coming too close to me. Once the entire army comes, one of these young boys is hit with a spear in his head. The other one is hit with a sword on his head. One of those, it happens too quick, brothers and sisters, for the maqatil to tell us which names. One of them dies instantly. The other one, he comes and says, uncle, please help us. We've been overpowered by the army. As soon as Imam Hussein alayhi salam enters, they disperse like fleas. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam comes and saves like a lion. Imam Hussein alayhi salam asks this final remaining boy, is there anything that you would like? He says, just give our final salams to our mother and tell her that we remembered her wasiyah. She asked us if we get to the river, not to drink because your children are thirsty. Tell her we got to the river and we remembered what she said to us, and we didn't even have a sip of water. Tell her we remembered her wasiyah, and from us is our last salams. With this, he dies. Now, Imam al-Hussein asks Abbas, bring the bodies back to the tent, where we will bury them with the rags. All of the women come into the tent except for Zainab. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam requests Zainab to come. When Zainab comes, she comes in between the two bodies. She sits down. She puts her hands onto the chests of these two boys and she screams and she says, Awn and Muhammad, who do I have left? My brother is alone. Who can I sacrifice now that you are gone? My brother is even more alone. Zainab says, this is farewell now. Your mother is going. We have to protect our Imam. And brothers and sisters, quickly, when they are in Sham, Imam Zain al-Abidin says, we will leave on conditions. We want the heads of the shuhada. The first heads that come are very small boxes because they are small heads. And in these boxes, the mothers like Rabab, who received the heads of her 6-month-old infant, they received the heads of their children first. But when the heads of Awn and Muhammad come, the soldiers ask, is there no one to come for the heads of these kids? Are their mothers dead in the tents of Karbala? Fidda comes and says, no, my master Zainab is here. She's alive. I will take their heads. What does she say when she sees the heads? She says, Fidda, I am the daughter of Ali. When we give sadaqah, we don't accept it back. What I have given, I don't accept it back. Finally, when Sayyidah Zainab has the chance in Medina, in her own house, she says she sees 2 musallas laid out, 2 small musallas. And when she folds them up, she hugs them near her chest, and she finally lets out her cries. And she says, Awn and Muhammad, I have lost you, my only sons. Who is there after me? I don't want to live anymore. Let someone come and take me so that I can join the rest of these family members. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون.